Welcome to Paddy's Say, our weekly chat with Swindon trainer Paddy Fitzpatrick. How you doing, Paddy?
Good, brother.
Paddy, this weekend, one of your former boxers, George Groves, is in action. Before we talk about his fight, he's had quite a bit to say in the press, especially about the Paddy Jack training camp, heavily criticising, your part in that. I'm sure you've read some of the articles, seen some of the videos. What are your thoughts on what he said?
Not much.
Not much. Okay. Well, let's start by he accused you of turning up to training in flip-flops, not turning up for press conferences. He's blamed you single-handedly for the defeat, not doing your corner job, etc., etc. I could go on. Just on those.
Wars in the Middle East, global warming. Might have blamed for all that.
What's your side of things on that? Where do you come from? Because it was a good relationship at the start, and George said some great things about you. You rated George highly. It looked like, it was a relationship that could work. Especially, George did well against Carl Froch. You both made history there, and he came so close to being a world champion. So it's a sour taste when things like that are being said afterwards, isn't it?
Sour taste, but it's not me to say them.
You're not going to play ball on this one, Paddy, are you?
No point playing ball, man. It's like schoolyard. Started off, he sounded a bit bitter. Then he sounded a bit whiny. Now it's just sounding quite amusing.
Disappointing, though, from your point of view, that he's still talking about those things rather than focusing on his fight at the weekend?
It's not disappointing for me, for I'm not connected with it, so it doesn't affect me, it doesn't bother me.
Is everything that he's saying, are they true? Or are they false?
Digging and digging. No, I came to the gym in flip-flops. I like them flip-flops. Matter of fact, I'm going to wear them again this year when it gets hot. I'll come in here with them. Yeah.
Let's talk about on fight night against Paddy Jack then, because he's saying you weren't giving him the right instructions. Now, what's your take on that? What were you telling him in there as the fight was progressing?
Well, at the end of round one, it was just you have to scrap that round, throw it away. You were winning a round, then you got dropped. Put it to the side. Round 2, close round. Round 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, I was happy with. Round 8, he came back. I said, no good, you look like you're tired. And I said, you ain't tired. I said, pull it back together. You're losing your composure. Round 9, come back. He looked like he was hanging again. I said, that's another round where you look tired. That's 2 rounds gone. The father was washing the mouthpiece. I pointed at the father and I said, you've broken personal best with Dan on your strength training. You've broken personal best with your conditioning here with the father, and pointed at the father. I said, you are not tired. Stop acting like you're tired. Round 10 he came back. I said, you look like you're hanging out your... Round 11 went out. Nice round again. And going into the 12th round, I goes, you got 3 minutes to go. You got 3 minutes to do this. You'll be world champion. Can you give me 3 minutes? And that was it. A split decision. He's... everyone's entitled to their opinion, and he's obviously. And Calais, I saw an interview there yesterday with IFL, and Calais said about the corner work, well, you can have your opinion, everyone's entitled to it, but you can't go changing facts. The facts are he wasn't 4 foot away. He didn't hear what was going on in the corner, because if he did, he'd have heard me saying round 8, 9 and 10 that. And it is what it is, brother. What can you do?
We'll move on from that, and we'll look towards his fight at the weekend. Has George got what it takes to, still become a world champion?
I believe so. Why not? He lost. Think about the men he lost to. He lost to Carl in a fight where he turned everyone on their head because no one believed he had a chance going into it. I believe he was more comfortable in the second one. Just made, the ultimate mistake in the 8th round. I thought he was boxing beautiful behind his jab. The plan in the second one was to push forward in the second half of the fight the way he did in the first half of the first fight. But we didn't get there. And he lost a split decision away from home to a Mayweather fighter in Vegas on a Mayweather show. He's a class operator. He's an exciting fighter. He hasn't been in wars where you think, is he damaged? I think he can still become a world champion, yeah. I don't disagree with one thing he's saying. I wasn't getting the best out of him. But I've said before, you could take who's perceived to be the best coach in the world. And I ain't saying that's me. And George ain't saying that's me. And you can take who's perceived to be the best fighter in the world. Let's take, for example, Freddie Roach is perceived to be one of the best coaches in the world, period. Floyd's perceived to be the best fighter. Do you think they'd make a good team? They wouldn't. So, would they get the best results? No, they wouldn't. So, if me and George aren't getting the best results, it's down to us. And if I obviously play a part in that. So when he says I'm not getting the best out of him, or I wasn't, I'd have to agree with that. So let's hope now that he's in a relationship with Shane, where Shane can get the best out of him. And I wish him all the best too, both of them.
What do you make of Shane? Because he's an up-and-coming trainer. Is he going to be one of the great trainers, do you think?
Listen, it's too easy, way too early yet to call anyone a great trainer when they're in the beginning of their coaching career. And also, what is a great trainer? It's somebody who you look back on in years to come and they've done lots in the game and had lots of fighters. Do I think he's a good trainer? I think he's an excellent trainer. If you base it on Carl Frampton, who I think is an excellent fighter, and I've heard him in the corner, and you watch the product of his work with Carl, I'd say he's an excellent trainer. I got interviewed when I was in New York with Eamon by Coogan for IFL. And he said, there's been a few names mentioned, being Rob McCracken and being Shane McGuigan. And I said then, I think Shane McGuigan's an excellent coach. So he's with an excellent coach. Now, if they have the relationship, which will tell over time, because don't forget, George thought I was good 7 months ago. So if that relationship is good and they get the best out of each other, they will have good results. Shane knows the game. George is an excellent fighter. Time will tell.
And George is in a very exciting division, which we've mentioned briefly before. But what do you make of it right now? You've got your De Gales, you've got Swindon's Jamie Cox as well in this division. It's going to be an exciting year, isn't it, for the super middleweights? It's
great, brother. When you think of the super middleweights back in the 90s, and you had Steve Collins and Ben and Watson and Eubank. And that was 4 fighters. Now you got George, you got Jamie, like you say, who's a wild card. You got De Gale, you got Martin Murray, you got Callum Smith, who I think is probably the best of them all. Excuse me, it's a fantastic division. And you could just keep rotating those men and not even leave Britain and have fantastic fights that'll be remembered for years to come. It's a very exciting division.
Let's talk about Callum Smith, because you're a massive fan of his, aren't you?
I've been a fan of his for years. I just think he's a nice, old school, patient fighter. The things that I admired about Badu Jack, as in good stance, good balance, feints well, understands distance, got a good jab, and then Callum's got that power as well to add on top of that. Plus, he's very patient, but he's also showed in his fight against Rocky Fielding he can come out and fire it up real early too. I do think that he is probably the best of all of them.
So he beats the lot then, because I was just going to ask you, who beats who out of the guys that we've just talked about.
You know what, styles make fights, brother. Listen, like I said, George is an excellent fighter, and he's got world class power. He can be a world champion. He's beaten James before on 2 occasions, so why wouldn't he be able to do it again? Very intriguing fight if that can get made after a couple of wins. If you look at Arthur Abrahams, say another world champion there, he can be losing rounds and rounds and then get you, But if you stick to the UK guys then, so you got De Gale, you got Martin Murray, who's been whiskers away every time, so you can't question him. He'd be a class fight. Jamie Cox, to me, is the wild card. And I just don't think that he's financially worth the risk, and that's why no one wants to fight him, because he's hell exciting. I worked with him for 10 fights. I said back then that he was world class. I said he's got world class boxing skills. I said he can fight, he can box, he can punch, he loves a fight. He's moved up to super middle, and it hasn't taken away from his power at all. If anything, it's added to it, or at least kept it on par with what he had in the lighter divisions, but at super middle. He's a danger for anybody, especially over the first 6 to 7. I do think that Jamie starts a little bit too quick with everything, so that if you're still there after 6 or 7, you kind of know what to expect then, but it'll still be a hell of a ride for 12 rounds. I'd fancy Jamie against any of them, purely because what he brings to the table. But I do think Callum has the beating of all of them. Styles make fights, but I do think Callum's patience and the way he goes about his work, he could make adjustments to beat all of them.
Jamie's in a strange situation at the moment, like you said. Nobody wants to fight him. He can't seem to force himself into a mandatory position. What can he do about that? Just keep fighting whoever's kind of put in front of him and hope that he jumps up the rankings and gets that fight?
Yes, brother, that is all he can do. If you think about it, Abrahams has got a fight against Ramirez now. After that fight, if George is still winning but can't, say, get to Gale or can't get Badu Jack because Callum is going that direction, then I expect Sauerland will make that fight happen. So Jamie will be out of the picture there for a while. If you look at the WBC, Callum is fighting an eliminator, who I think Sauerlands have said that they're going to contest that and want to put maybe George in for that eliminator. I think that's a bad fight for George. I would favour Callum in that fight. I think the WBC is tied up as far as Jamie getting his shot there. He's the WBA against Chudinov. That is a fight that you could possibly see Jamie getting himself in position for. Frank Warren is good with Chudinov's management, and Jamie's a Warren fighter. It'd be nice to see him get his shot there. And like I say, he has the beating of all of them. It's just Chudinov, I think, is actually a lot better than his brother at middleweight. A lot better. I think Chudinov's jab is a lot better. He's very strong in his stance. He has definitely more snap and variety on his jab. And if he can take a good shot, because Jamie can deliver a good shot, if he can take a good shot, it's interesting to see then after round 6 or 7 what happens to Jamie. But Jamie just has to keep winning. You can't, eventually you keep sparking people out, you're going to get your shot. And it would be nice for him to get his shot. It'd be nice to have a world champion from Swindon.
Excellent. We've talked about the present, let's talk about the past. Who's your favourite super middleweight of all time and why?
Favourite super middle of all time? I couldn't answer that. Possibly Calzaghe. Can't argue with an unbeaten record. He did fight, even though people were saying he ain't, if you look at his record, all the ex-world champions that he fought, they weren't world champions when he fought them, but the world champions weren't really wanting to fight him when he had it. He went and beat Hopkins, but people were saying, yeah, but that's not the same Hopkins. But Hopkins then went on to become a world champion again and beat other fighters. I'd probably say, yeah, Calzaghe. He's another one. He was kind of, and people would probably not see this, but he was kind of like a Jamie. He could box, he could fight, good chin, good hand speed, and he could punch. Yeah, probably him, Mr. Calzaghe.
That's great. Well, thanks for joining us, Paddy. Exciting chat as always, and we'll see you. Paddy's say.
How long did it take you to come up with that?
It was at least a week, wasn't it? So we'll be back next week with Paddy's say. Thank you very much, Paddy.
Keep smiling, man. Peace.
Cheers.
You got
Thank
it.
you.